Everyone knows the NBA has got some big guys in the league, but these guys take the word big to a whole new level. From awful diets to guys who were almost 400 pounds, let's take a look at the fattest players in NBA history. We gotta kick things off with the guy known for putting on a few pounds every offseason. At Duke, Zion Williamson was one of the most exciting college basketball players in history. There was no doubt that Zion was going to go first overall in the 2019 NBA draft. While he has been a two-time All-Star since then, Zion has certainly been enjoying all of the rewards that come with being in the league. When the Pelicans superstar signed his $200 million contract with New Orleans, he must have spent most of that money on McDonald's. Most guys who get big contracts early on spend their money on women, cars, and jewelry. Zion was spending his on Big Macs and fries. It got so bad that the Pelicans have even included a clause in his contract that he will be fined if his weight and his body fat percentage add up to more than 133. You know it's bad when the team has to put in a clause in your contract to stop you eating. Zion Williamson is certainly not the first guy in NBA history to earn a truckload of money and spend most of that on food. In his prime, Shaq was one of the most athletic and physical guys in the league. But when he got towards the back end of that career, Shaq started to let himself go a little. Shaquille ONeal looked like a Greek god while he was three-peating with the Los Angeles Lakers. But after leaving Miami, Shaq started to slow down and widen out a little bit. With the Heat, Shaq had a clause in his contract saying that if he wasn't at 13% or lower on the body fat percentage, then the team would fine him $1,000. It was so bad that if the Big Diesel did this 3 times, the team would have suspended him for a game. In Boston is where he got really heavy. The guy looks like he lives in a Wendy's. Five Guys is one of the restaurants that Shaq owns a lot of locations of. But maybe he was sampling the menu a bit too much, but hey, I don't blame him. Boston Shaq was certainly one of the fattest players in NBA history, and Shaq has certainly been enjoying some good food during his retirement. James Harden was another guy who decided to enjoy some quality food, but he did it at the end of his time with the Houston Rockets. Harden turned into league MVP while he was playing in Houston, making the Rockets seem very smart for trading him, and the OKC Thunder seemed pretty stupid for letting him go. But towards the end of Harden's time with the Rockets, it was becoming pretty obvious that Harden was not happy with the organization. He secretly went on what looked like a little bit of a protest by completely ignoring the team's diet. Harden ballooned up, with his belly making him look like everyone's fat uncle after Thanksgiving. The Rockets must have been thrilled when Harden turned up with the beer belly of a 50-year-old truck driver. They must have been even more shocked when they saw Harden lose all that weight after being traded. Fat James Harden seemed to disappear and was replaced by a much skinnier version. He lost so much weight. Some people thought the former MVP was even wearing a fat suit to reduce his trade value. Harden was heavy, but he did not claim the crown of the fattest guy in NBA history. That went to Oliver Miller. I know what you're probably thinking. Who? Well, Oliver Miller was drafted 22nd overall by the Phoenix Suns in 1992. Miller had an 8-year stint in the league with 5 different teams where he struggled to consistently find a home. What must not have helped Miller's chances in the league was his incredible weight. When he came into the league, Miller weighed around 120 kilograms. Sounds like a huge amount, but it's not crazy for a guy who was 6'9". But later in his career, Miller's weight got all the way up to an incredible 392 pounds. That's almost a 400-pound man, and it makes him the heaviest NBA player in history. The craziest part is Miller was only 6'9", which is probably only just above average for the NBA. He was heavier than guys who were more than 5 inches taller than him. You can see why Miller could not stay in the NBA for very long. While Miller might have been the fattest player in NBA history, he didn't have a nickname like this next guy. Everyone remembers Glenn Davis, who was also nicknamed Big Baby. Well, the big part of that nickname was certainly accurate. The NBA champion had a lot of memorable moments in the league. From getting concussed by Dwight Howard to shoving a 12-year-old fan, Big Baby might have had more non-basketball moments than anything else. One thing you can't deny about his career was that Big Baby was certainly a bit too big. At his heaviest, Glenn Davis weighed almost 300 pounds, even though he was certainly not the tallest guy in the league. It was really his play on the court that got Davis his reputation as a fatty. There are a lot of stories about the insane things that Davis used to eat while he was in the league, including sushi for breakfast and some of the biggest meals you will ever see. So you're gonna be shocked when you find out what Big Baby is a vegan now. Maybe should have made that decision during his playing days. Big guys in the NBA are supposed to be a little fat, but if you're a guard and you're fat, it makes it even more embarrassing. Khalid El-Amin was one of those guys who embarrassed himself in the league by not being able to shed some of those pounds. During his time at UConn, it was actually a good thing that Khalid was so overweight. He was able to use his large frame to bully opposing guards and score points with ease. He was named All-Big East First Team, in part because it was so difficult for opposing guards to stop El-Amin when he was weighing nearly 100 kilograms despite being less than 6 feet tall. When he he got to the league, Khalid did not have the same dominance over opposing guards. Instead, his physique became a big issue. The 2002 round pick only lasted one season in the NBA before he became an international journeyman. In the end, Khalid played in countries like France, Israel, Lithuania, and Turkey. Hey, at least Khalid got to taste a lot of the world's food on his long basketball career. One guy who certainly enjoyed his food during his NBA career was Charles Barkley. You might know Chuck as one of the funniest guys in NBA coverage at the moment, but he was also an excellent NBA player. Barkley is a former MVP, 11-time All-Star, and was named to the All-NBA first team 5 times. Chuck even led the league in rebounds one season despite being only 6'6". You want to know how he did that? Well, it's pretty simple actually. Barkley was just really fat. Even in high school, Chuck struggled getting offers from colleges because he was a fat guy who could play basketball really well. When he was in college, there is a famous story about Chuck eating tons of burgers and pizza to make himself even heavier and try to avoid getting drafted by the Philadelphia Sixers. But getting drafted by the Sixers meant Barkley learned from Moses Malone, who helped Chuck learn what a salad is and how to stop only eating burgers and pizza. Barkley was heavy for his size, but he was not too fat to become one of the best players in the NBA. Charles Barkley is now the perfect inspiration for every fat kid out there who wants to make it to the league. Chuck was fat during his time in the league, but he was not quite as heavy as the guy who was so fat. He was even named after some food. Eddie Curry was drafted 4th overall by the Chicago Bulls in 2001. He developed into a solid player across his time in Chicago, but a heart issue put Curry's career under threat. The issue led to Curry being traded to the New York Knicks, where he eventually signed a big-time contract with New York. It might not surprise you to hear that Curry was not the biggest success in New York. You could tell he enjoyed his contract, with Curry putting on the pounds while he was with New York. He was well over 300 pounds in his time with the Knicks, and it meant Curry was often injured. What probably annoyed Knicks fans was it took him 4 years to even get a trainer who could help him lose some weight. You would have thought that he would have recognized this sooner. A very big man who was very bad in the Big Apple. Maybe the Knicks think fat NBA players make a championship-winning team because they signed another big man while employing Curry. That man was Raymond Felton, and you might know him as one of the fattest point guards in NBA history. Originally selected 5th overall by the Charlotte Bobcats, Felton was never more than a solid role player in the league. He was a bit of a journeyman, playing for 7 different teams across his 14-year career in the league. It is probably not a good signal of Felton's career when you find out he is best remembered for his size rather than his play. Felton is only 6'1", pretty much average for an NBA point guard. Despite that, he consistently weighed more than 220 pounds during his career. While listed at 210 pounds, that was probably a little bit kind to Felton's size. Let's just say that Raymond Felton was never the point guard who was going to race past defenders like Russell Westbrook. He is most remembered for a famous photo from 2012 of Felton looking more than a little bit rough during basketball camp. One guy who I don't think had any famous moments in the NBA was Michael Sweetney. Now I know what you're thinking, who? But just take a look at Sweetney and you will understand why he's in this list. Drafted 9th overall by, you guessed it, the New York Knicks, Sweetney was definitely a bust in the NBA, and you could see why. He played just 4 years in the league before going on a long and pretty confusing end to his basketball career. Sweetney played in China, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, and even in Uruguay. Well, it was partly down to his weight that Sweetney did not play in the league. At one point, it was reported in the Chicago Tribune that if Sweetney did not lose a certain amount of weight, then his career could be in danger. It certainly was in danger. Listed at almost 350 pounds, Sweetney was not just fat, but he was pretty out of shape in the NBA. He made Shaq look like a bodybuilder when he was posing in the Boston jersey during an invite to training camp. Well, those were the fattest players in NBA history. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. While you're down there, why not smash that like button and subscribe? Thank you for watching, and on the screen is another great video from our channel. Check that one out next.